Good evening, everyone. Today's Monday, September 18th, and I'm your host, Melanie Morris, also known as that lady in the yellow jacket. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, and as usual, I've got another great show, a very special guest, so you may want to call up your friends. If they don't live in Somerville and they can't watch on Channel 3, just come on to our website, the SCATV website, and you can stream this show live anywhere from anywhere in the world. My guest tonight is Boston City Councilor Tito Jackson. Tito is one of 4 people who is throwing his name into the hat for Boston's top job, mayor of the city. Thank you so much, Tito, for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much, Melanie.
I know you're very busy. This is a busy time for you, so I definitely appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me on SCATV.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're just going to jump right into it because, you know, 30 minutes goes by very, very fast. Let me start with something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a long-distance bicyclist, and this was back in May. Richard Archer was a cyclist that was killed in the Back Bay. And after we had a memorial service for him, there was a transportation budgeting meeting that night at City Hall, and all of the people at the memorial service kind of rode down to City Hall, and there were hundreds and hundreds of cyclists. And I was really touched by something you said, and I'm going to just kind of summarize your quote here. You said, we need change. We need to change our mentality and look at this from a public health matter. Something that kills someone is a weapon. This is a memorial for someone's friend. It's uncomfortable, and it should be. We need to move with urgency. If we have $100 million that's stuck somewhere, then let's unstick it to save lives. We need to make sure that no more people die in pedestrian and cycling accidents. As mayor, what are you going to do so that we can stop these cycling accidents?
Definitely. So, Melanie, Rich Archer's death was a shocker for so many people in the city. And it was important that the cycling community came and held the city council and the city of Boston accountable. So one of the things that I will do is we will deal with the issue of funding. We are not going to make people drive better in the city of Boston. That's not going to actually happen. But we do know the city of Boston spends $5 per resident on cycling infrastructure each year. The city of New York spends $15, and the city of San Francisco spends $75. This is an engineering issue. Vision Zero is something that has to absolutely be implemented, and it simply states that no one should die riding their bike or crossing a street. And so we as a city of Boston have to be much more aggressive. I would also take the bike office, which used to be in the mayor's office. Boston Bikes used to be in Mayor Menino's office.
Right, it did.
Mayor Walsh has taken it out of his mayor's office and moved it to the Boston Transportation Department. I will bring it back to my office because out of sight, out of mind, out of sight, out of budget. And we need to make sure that we are much more aggressive in this space. As we do streets over, we have to put road diets in, shrink some of the roads, and also really look to make sure that we are able to stop the accidents, in particular accidents that occur when bicyclists are turning. We must do this. We must urgently do it. And as mayor, that will be a priority for me.
And that's a good point you bring up, preventing accidents while cyclists are turning, because that's how Dr. Anita Kerman died back in August of 2015. Yeah. She was making a right turn there off Mass Ave onto Beacon, and she was right hooked by a truck.
And the issue really also has to be, cars are scared of bikes too, right? When it comes to two individuals who are afraid, there needs to be separate. So having more actually separated bike lanes, I think is also critical. But the other piece is we want to make sure that we use all that we have relative to engineering to separate the two, because it has shown to be fatal and almost always fatal for the biker and not the car.
All right, well, it's nice to hear you say separated bike lanes, because that's what we want as cyclists. We want to be safe.
And more Boston Bike Party, because I never knew how fun that was until
Did you go to the Boston Bike Party?
When? I've been 2 months ago. I was with the Boston Bike Party. They have a boom box that kind of goes. Then there's a dance party. Had I known that there was going to be dance parties with the bike, see, y'all hit that part for me. All I saw was exercise. I didn't know there was a party on the bike.
The Boston Bike Party is the bomb. come, okay? If you have not been to a Boston Bike Party, please come. Now,
Shout
it
out to
wasn't,
Boston Bikes.
all right, but shout out to the Boston Bike Party and Peter Chung, who's one of the organizers.
Peter is awesome, and his mix, they do this. You submit your songs. It's amazing. I want to be down.
All right, well, we're going to hold you, when you become mayor, we're going to hold you accountable for separated bike lanes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's move on to housing. Housing is very expensive in Boston. You know, it's very, very expensive. You know, we need housing that the middle class, the lower and the middle class can afford.
Yeah.
You know, it's great that people can afford multi-million-dollar condos. That's wonderful,
Yeah.
but not everybody can. What are you going to do to fix that?
So first, we're going to acknowledge what the reality is in Boston. 50% of people in Boston make $35,000 or less. What we refer to as affordable in Boston is housing for individuals who make $70,000 to $120,000. So we have missed the mark, and we're not even planning on housing most of the people who are in the city of Boston. Mayor Walsh has this 53,000 units of housing that he wants to put online, but 87% of it is market rate housing. But that's problematic because we know what the market is. In Boston, on average, one bedroom is $2,200. We know that there are units going up all around the city that people can't afford. East Boston, $2,200. People act like the water just came there. We need to make sure that we are building housing that is really affordable. So one, let's change the definition of affordable to what is actually the median annual income in that individual neighborhood, which is important. In addition, in Cambridge, right next door, they require 20% of the housing to be affordable. And if you build over 10 units. In Boston, it's 13%. So I would move immediately to increase that. But before I do all of that, I would blow up an organization called the Boston Redevelopment Authority. It's doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Authority. It took $600,000 to change the name and add a letter to an acronym. It is a non-transparent, non-accountable, and undemocratic agency, only accountable to the mayor. And what is happening is it is greenlighting, and this is our redevelopment or planning agency. It is greenlighting all of this development. 87% of the development is going to the top 20% in the city of Boston. We are gentrifying. We are displacing people out of Boston faster than ever. I would get rid of the agency and replace it with a people-centered agency that's transparent, accountable to the people in the city of Boston, and democratic. And I would do that immediately. In addition, I would help our homeless brothers and sisters. We know that Mayor Walsh, and he should be ashamed of himself, he closed the Long Island Bridge. He allowed people to go there that night, condemned the bridge after they were there, and rushed people back over within 4 hours. They only had 4 hours to leave the island, well over hundreds of people. And what happened? At least 10 people came back, and they were in detox. There was a detox there and homeless shelters. They died. They OD'd. That blood is on the hands of the city of Boston, on this administration, and it's wrong. And so as mayor, I will reopen Long Island, and the first thing that I would do is we will purchase a boat. So for the bridge thing, we had this thing. I don't know if y'all know about Noah, and Noah had a little ark and said, okay, cool. So we will purchase a boat. And that's how young people are transported back and forth to Camp Harborview. And so we will get the island back online, and in particular for those folks who need help with addiction. It is critical that we help these folks. And one of the ways that we can do it is for $5 million of city money, we can create city-based vouchers, akin to Section 8 vouchers, and we can get 400 of them for just $5 million. That's 400 families who could be back in housing. And lastly, we have lots of city land that we own. And so public land should be for public good. So it is critical that when we build on that city land, it's not only going to the developer who gives the highest amount of money. That's not what we're doing anymore. In my administration, we're going to use public land for public good, building at least 1,000 units of affordable home ownership in the first 4 years, and using the other land to build affordable rentals in the city so people can stay in the neighborhoods and the communities that they live in. It's a shame when young people, up to a 26-year-old, she said, I don't even think about buying a house in the city of Boston, Tito. She has a master's degree. She did all the stuff that we told her to do that she can't afford there. our city, it should be a city that is affordable to the working and middle class. And if it's not, then we're not doing something right. And right now, Mayor Walsh has us in the wrong direction.
Is Boston spending money to keep Long Island open now?
Yeah, there's well over $5 million. It's between $5 and $11 million a year that is being used to keep something that is actually not servicing people.
What's the money going to? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, so it turns out you still have to heat the buildings during the winter time because the pipes will freeze. There's electricity that's going out there, and then there's maintenance that's going out there. And by the way, since there's no bridge, when they bring oil over there, they have to rent a barge, put the truck on the barge, and float it over, right? Again, this is, by the way, this is the worst of government, when we actually do less when we need more, when we take away a resource and we don't replace it. And this is an artificial crisis. That bridge could have been upgraded. And again, this is on the hands of the Walsh administration. In my administration, we will plan for our most vulnerable, and we will not turn our backs on the most vulnerable populations in the city of Boston.
We will not turn our backs on the most vulnerable population in the city of Boston. If you're just joining us tonight, my guest is Boston City Councilor Tito Jackson, who's one of 4 people who's throwing his name into the hat for Boston's top job, mayor of the city. Tito, let's talk about education.
Let's do that.
It's so important. You know, some of these kids are around and they're not being educated properly, or because of where they live, it may be a school that's not up to par versus their counterparts who are, maybe in a better zip code and their schools are up to par. And you and I both know that in the long run, that can definitely affect you. What will you do to change that?
Education is a civil rights issue of our time. It is absolutely the great equalizer. And I'm chair of education on the Boston City Council, so I'm very passionate about it. And I was very active in the No on Question 2 campaign because I believe that those dollars shifting over only to charters and not adding more money to the Boston Public Schools would have irreparably harmed the Boston Public Schools. What will I do? I will fully fund the Boston Public Schools. This year, $11 million was cut out of the Boston Public Schools, out of 49 schools. One, I will focus on vocational technical education. $455,000 was cut out of Madison Park Vocational Technical High School. Vocational education is absolutely critical in 2017, and it is a skill set that we need to expand rather than contract. So I look forward actually to building a brand new state-of-the-art fully decked out 2017 model of a vocational technical school. In addition, it is critical that we deal with the universal early education. What we know is going to school at age 3 or 4 has the best outcomes for you graduating high school. We have 4,000 young people who are on a waiting list to get into early education. Now juxtapose this with New York City. Mayor Walsh came in at the same time as de Blasio came in. De Blasio has gotten 50,000 new early education seats, and Mayor Walsh has gotten 700. It will be my goal to ensure that all 4,000 of those young people are able to get a seat. The other piece is I'm really radical. I want to add art and music back to schools. We have many schools in Boston Public Schools where they've taken out all the fun, all the things that young people actually like. In addition, I want to add a kindergarten through 12th grade computer science curriculum. And the reason why we want to do that is by 2020, there's 1.4 million open jobs in computing. There's only 400,000 people in the whole US studying it. There's 1 million open jobs. So computer science is a core competency like reading, writing, and arithmetic for young people, not for us, but for young people who are going to come along after us. And so it is absolutely critical. You're way younger than me, so I'm just talking about myself.
I know you were only talking about yourself. I know he was only talking about himself.
But that's a critical component. And all that said, we have 4,000 homeless students in Boston Public Schools out of 58,000. I will ensure also that we have the wraparound resources that our young people need. The trauma resources will be restored. Mayor Walsh cut those. He's also cut resources for...
Why did he cut those? Do you know?
He cut it because he said the budget was too high. his administration has said that their budget, the Boston Public School budget, is too high. Well, I will say this to you: it's about $20,000 a year to educate a child in Boston. It is $54,000 a year to incarcerate a person in the city of Boston. The question I have is, what's more expensive? It's pay now or pay later with interest. Frederick Douglass said it is easier. It is easier to build a strong child than to fix a broken man. And we'll just leave it that. We won't add the woman in, because women are whole. To fix a broken man, right? And so when it comes down to it, it's absolutely critical that we fully fund the schools. Now, mind you, at the same time, and one of the craziest nights of my life was I went to a GE helicopter pad hearing, where Mayor Walsh wanted to give General Electric a free helicopter pad for $12 million. So I stood up, I said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. It is asinine that we're even having this conversation, but I have to leave, because they're about to close a school called the Mattahunt School in Mattapan, which serves large population of immigrant children, particularly Haitian students. So I left, and they still closed the school, and even though we advocated. So the night that they were offering free money to a $290 billion company that has already gotten a $276 million sweet package, and also General Electric, that poisoned the Housatonic River in Pittsfield, still owes $650 million. We're offering them free stuff, and we're turning our backs and and closing schools. And so my issue is that the Boston Public Schools have to be paramount and are a critical part to where we need to be. And it should be every student. It should, this lottery thing, we can't have winners and losers, because when we have winners and losers, we all lose, because all young people are not getting a quality education.
Right, right. Did GE get that free helicopter pad?
We were able to shut it down, because it turns out that Logan Airport has the fastest commute for any international airport in the whole world, from the airport to the center of the city. Right, and no one. I'm the only one who knew that. I'm the only one who knew that. No, it's silly. They didn't get it, and the people of South Boston, I want to give them props. The businesses in South Boston actually stepped up. They showed up, and they showed out and said, we're not going to have that. But again, we have a mayor who did the Olympics, signed his name to the Olympics, and I was the one city councilor stepped forward and subpoenaed the Olympic documents, and found out it wasn't actually $9 billion. As they told us, $9 billion and trust us, it was actually $12 billion. I also stood up against the IndyCar race, which is one of the most comical, asinine things that the city could also do, and went bankrupt, and also millions of dollars of people's money from Boston and other places was lost on something that the city co-signed on. You will not see those type of harebrained ideas in my administration. You will see ethical governance. You will also see democracy in action, transparency and accountability. And one of the things that we will also do that is much more democratic than this being done, I will have a elected school committee, which we don't currently have. It's appointed by the mayor. All 350 other cities and towns. And I know I'm in Somerville, so I know you're looking at me like, okay, why would you do that? We shouldn't do it. We have an appointed school committee only by the mayor. I will remove the appointed school committee, and I will give that back to the people of the city of Boston, because it is the cradle of democracy. We can't only talk about it, we must be about it.
We can't only talk about it, but we also must be about it. Did you work with Chris Dempsey then also for the No Olympics?
Get to work with one. He's one of the finest Bostonians that we have. I'm proud of the work that is, again, no Boston 24, no Boston Olympics. They spent less than $10,000 to take down a $15 million enterprise that was going to make the rich richer in the city of Boston, and I'm happy that I got to stand with them. And I got to meet him when we were first campaigning for Obama won up in New Hampshire. That's when I met.
That's when you met Chris. Yeah, he's going to come on the show. I have his book, so I'm going to have him on.
I'm on the back cover. I got to write a little.
Are you?
First time ever. I just want to thank my mom, my third grade teacher, Mrs. McIntosh, and Barry Schumann, my 10th grade English teacher. No, I'm just kidding.
If you're just joining us, folks, I'm Melanie. I'm your host. I'm also known as Lady in the Yellow Jacket. And my guest tonight is Tito Jackson, who is a mayoral candidate for Boston. Let's talk about healthcare.
Yes.
Healthcare, everybody obviously deserves healthcare. And in a language where, not everybody speaks English, and Boston's, very much a multicultural city.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to make sure that everybody has equal and fair health care?
So let's first identify the huge disparity that we have in the city of Boston. So I represent, my district is probably the best representation of healthcare disparities in the whole city. So I have a slice of Back Bay, just a little slither of Back Bay, and I go to Roxbury. This is about 2 miles in between my district, and there is a 33-year difference in life expectancy. So if you live in Back Bay, you live to 91.9. If you live in Roxbury, you live to 58.9. And 58.9 is lower than the life expectancy of Iraq, Cambodia, as well as Gambia. That's in our city, that's in our time, and it's absolutely critical that we deal with these issues. So a couple things that we must do. And one of the parts of Obamacare that people don't know about is that nonprofit hospitals under Obamacare have to prove their nonprofit community benefit to an organization known as the IRS. So the IRS is not really in the pros, they are much more into numbers. So now these organizations have to begin to look at what their effect in their neighborhood, community, or catchment area is. So I think it's critical that we look at what we refer to as our pilot payments, right? So hospitals don't pay taxes. Unless they're a for-profit hospital. They payment in lieu of taxes is what they pay, just like colleges and universities. One of the things that hospitals are able to do is they're able to take their pilot payment, say if you're, Mass General Hospital, a hospital like that, maybe if they owe $10 million in pilot, they can give the city of Boston $5 million of that in what we refer to as in-kind donations. So when you see the vans, those big buses that do mammograms and do testing, the hospitals are getting credit for that. What we should go forward and do is actually do an evaluation annually of the actual outcome data for what's occurring. And I'll give you an example. Black women in Boston get mammograms at a higher rate than white women, but they die at a much higher rate from breast cancer. So the screening component is critical, but when we see black women dying at a higher rate, that is absolutely critical. The other piece that we need to look at around healthcare disparities is access to quality healthcare, and also in the with the opioid scourge that's occurring, there are not equitable access to beds for all, and we should have treatment on demand. And in particular for Boston-based hospitals as well as folks in the city of Boston, because we are losing several thousand people a year to this issue of opioids. The other piece is really a proactive approach to care, which is we have to deal with the food deserts that occur in and around our community. There's some places where you can't get anything not processed.
You can't get a tomato or a green pepper or, something healthy, a salad.
So it is.
So how are you going to address the food deserts?
So what we'd like to do is, and this actually requires us to do planning in the city, right? So it is critical that we actually have space for fresh food, and we now have Daily Table moving into Roxbury, but also we need to be deliberate about the types of food that are in and around our neighborhoods and communities. And the city should financially incent businesses that are going to help people in that space. I guess the last piece I would also say is there's something to be said about economic health translating into your physical health. There are parts of Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan that have exponentially higher rates of unemployment, nearly double-digit unemployment rates. It is critical that we get at those unemployment rates because that poverty is a precursor or predictor for those really bad healthcare outcomes. So we have a lot of work to do in that space in the city. And I think we should teach folks a little bit more about biking in the city of Boston and better biking infrastructure. And biking, again, it shouldn't be an elite sport. Biking should be something that is safe, and available and accessible to all. And I think that's a really critical component. So we need more bike infrastructure in every neighborhood, not only some neighborhoods downtown, but we need connected bike infrastructure with separated lanes in all neighborhoods in the city of Boston, so it is a accessible city. And that also helps us deal with the disparities that we have also in transportation, which is another disparity that we have in Boston.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I'm always willing to help when it comes to cycling, so you got my name, you got my number. Tito, can you believe it? We only have like 2 minutes left. Oh my goodness. Quickly, in 1 minute. The police department.
Yes.
Are you going to require body cams?
I've been the chief proponent on the Boston City Council for body-worn cameras for all police officers. The Boston Police Department has spent over $37 million in settlements over the past 7 years. It is silly. 2017. We've never had. We don't have the cameras in the cars.
Right.
We definitely should have them on the people. There's no reason, and this is Mayor Walsh waffling and actually coming at this flat-footed. We need to be accountable to the people of the city of Boston, and body cams are the way to do it, as well as the civilian review board with teeth.
Obviously, because we need body cams, but then we don't want to become like a city Ferguson and St. Louis. What's going on now? And
but every city, understand, every city in the United States of America is one incident away from any of those. So it is critical that we have accountable, transparent policing. And by the way, it not only protects the people, it protects the police who have to go into very difficult situations. We love our police officers. We want them to continue to have the tools to be better and to be technologically advanced. How are we Boston, which has an innovation culture, and we don't innovate in our police department?
And we don't innovate in our police department. Tito, what do you like to do for fun?
I am the best dancer in the campaign, and so I've been known to do a wobble or the Cupid Shuffle or the Tito dance, which your viewers should check out. I have two of the best. Go on YouTube and type in "Vote for Tito."
Okay.
That's a great campaign song. And then type in Tito dance, which is I actually have a line dance. I am not the Egyptian male belly dancer. That's another one, but that's
all right. That's another one.
Yes.
All right, Tito. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Look, I'm going to have you back on the show.
This is awesome.
Thank you again, Tito Jackson, folks. If the voting is next Tuesday,
September 26th.
26th is a preliminary.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and November 7th is the actual final election. Please come out. We have an opportunity to uplift the city of Boston for all, not just some.
For all, not just some. Hey, folks, thanks for joining me. I'm Melanie, the lady in the yellow jacket. This is Tito Jackson. Thanks so much and have a good night.